Good morning and a pleasant welcome to Pressreview, the program that looks at major news stories covered by the press in Sierra Leone. My name is Hawa Bari. Today is Monday, the 21st of March 2016. I'm here with a team of professionals to help give you some of what's reported in today's dailies. In the studios are Augustine Samba, who is a media analyst, Willie Collier, head of programs, Cotton News, and Melvin Mansari, acting editor of the Trumpet newspaper. Good morning, gentlemen, and welcome to the program.
Good morning, lady. Good morning.
Pleasure being here.
Good morning, viewers.
All right, as usual, we start off with newspaper headlines or captions for the AYV News. It reads, over 221 million leones chopped, 2 in ACC net, and there's a photo there of the president. CRC recommendations, 2 different views. World Bank blasts mobile companies. For the Awoko newspaper, ex-minister cries in court as Kamajo convict gets bail, and there's a photo there of Moinina Fofana and Moja Kaikai from the Minister of Social Welfare. Irish Aid has spent over £100 million in Sierra Leone, and they're quoting the Irish ambassador. For the Premier News, Sakila Road Cemetery, now a garbage dump. And there's a photo there of, not a sightful scene there, of the cemetery. 2 have died from Ebola in Guinea. Former Director of Public Prosecution risks prosecution. For the Good Morning Trumpet, Chief Justice takes steps to normalize bail and sentencing of Mohamed Bangura. Kamarin Ba targets President Koroma. There's a photo there of Mohamed Bangura and Mohamed Kamarin Ba. Councillor Spitfire CRC proposal abuses people's rights. For the Congo Times newspaper, Moinina Fofana admits violating early release conditions, apologizes. Tribal war, filmmakers give an alternative sentence. Kube residents want dilapidated bridge constructed. Developing bail and sentencing instruments for Sierra Leone. And finally, for this morning, the Global Times newspaper, World Bank launches development report. Sylvia Blyden, others face MPs today. PS office evades procurement rules. Well, those are some of the headlines you find on some of the local tabloids for today, Monday, 21st March 2016. My name is Hawa Bari. Again in the studios are Melvin Mansari, acting editor of the Good Morning Trumpet newspaper, Willie Collier, head of programs, Cotton News, and Augustine Samba, who is a media analyst. I'll start off with Augustine. Which story?
Yeah, I would like to pick on the proven presidential nominees in the New Citizen newspaper today.
Okay. So what's the new angle to this story? Because it has been, one of the stories since the cabinet reshuffle.
It has become a public debate among members of the public and civil society and other political critics. This is a test time for Parliament, because whether they are really representing the people. When you measure Africa in politics, you always realize that the executive arm of government always overpower the other arms of government, including Parliament and the justice system, the judiciary. These people have been nominated by President Nkrumah, but the public debate behind them, behind few of them, is creating a room for debate for good governance and democracy. Now, under whether they were sent under party ticket or under patronage, but the public is now looking at Parliament to vet these people which a trend which satisfy public view. Now, initially when the names of presidential nominees were announced, the Cameron, one of the opposition leaders in this country, came out and criticized the nomination of Mohamed Bangura. And
now, does it end there? Is it only about criticizing? Because, you talked earlier on about, test time for parliamentarians, because it's open, it's in the public now. If you have any information about any of these nominees, being nominated, the question we are asking whether to come forward, with any
the question,
why they think these people shouldn't.
Yes, the question is whether the people at the back, or people standing at the back, or the majority of the people who are supposed to participate in democracy, whether their rights are being heard or their rights are being given to them, right? The MPs were sent by majority of their people in their constituencies, right? Now, when the criticism of Mohamed Bangra started, or other nominees, we want to ask our MPs whether they have consulted their people, or whether his nomination is in line with the constitution, right? The consultation of the people is very paramount in democracy. The consultation of the people, because they are the majority.
All right, now
the MPs are just there to represent in parliament.
Let me quickly bring in Willie. This is a process. With regards to nomination, it's definitely the president's prerogative. To nominate any Sierra Leonean to serve any public office in the country. But let's look closely at the process. People have been definitely debating on certain issues or maybe on certain of these nominees. If they're fit to serve in those capacities. Now let's look at the process in general. Do we say the sole responsibility lie with the parliamentarians?
Oh yes, parliament in any country is very much important in determining what could be in the interests of the people. But I want to argue here on two fronts. One, the way the people themselves created the parliament of this country under the present regime, with the APC being in power and the SFBP being the official. I want to briefly touch on that.
If we go into that, then definitely we'll spend.
So it's not matter.
Can we definitely focus on the role of Parliament?
It is what I am saying, but I need to.
Let's get your views first.
Yes. So the views now. So the reason why I am creating all these analogies because. One, the very people that created the parliament, as I said earlier on, did it wrongly. Number one, there is no way in a democracy you could allow a single political party to have an overwhelming majority in parliament. Thereby, any issue that goes in parliament will actually, in most cases, would be in favor of those that determine. Coming back to the aspect of this, yestermonths, some people, a journalist insinuated, saying rubber stamp parliament. I am not here justifying that indeed. But what is called rubber stamp, if you put it this way, it will remain. Nothing will change because it is made out of rubber.
So
it's not shift. And so the same parliament. So I have never seen in this country people debated over an issue and that issue goes to parliament and it's come out to be in the people's favor. So often, it is often what the president directs or those that control, in quotes, in whatever way, it goes in their own direction.
Let me bring in Melvin. Melvin, you've been, covering issues, relating to Parliament, or you've been there, covering for quite a while now. Now, let's look at some of the processes involved, especially when, Sierra Leoneans are nominated, to serve in public offices.
Well, it all starts from the declaration form, which is issued out by Parliament. I don't think the public knows too much about what are the questions that are asked to these guests, to these witnesses, but I only know that their bank accounts, their public, and some of their profiles are stated there. And what's new on this one, I think it's the robustity or the rigidity in which this particular public accounts committee is going to probe those particular nominees. There are questions there, but like you rightly mentioned, Parliament for the first time unprecedentedly have been calling for public submissions if they know they have things that can disqualify some of these nominees.
Would you agree with me that would say, like, for example, the Parliament is like a church. Let's say, for example, you want to marry someone, and then the church will definitely ask the congregation exactly if anyone knows any thing about these two people, why they shouldn't get married. Is it the same role that we expect the Parliament should play in this light? People should definitely come forward and do their own background check.
It's a bit complex for the simple fact that the members of the public are not allowed in the public in the committee of appointments hearing to publicly make their presentations. And one of the way one of the caveats they have is to make written submissions. So that can be questionable as to how they go about to select the concerns, the objections, and that. But I think for the first time we're seeing the parliament being opened up for members of the public to come forth with their criticisms, with their objections, and other things, which is the beauty for democracy. As to whether the public did wrong in voting majority of one party, I think that should be the beauty of democracy, and it's not unique to Sierra Leone. For the fact that I think we need to just have an informed citizenry. If the people are informed, they will vote for the right people. And so, as to the role of our parliamentarians, I want to see this particular hearing be divorced of party political interest or like it's commonly quoted, quote-unquote, powers from above thing.
Let's not quickly, deviate away from, the initial discussion of the topic in question. Now, it was Augustine's idea, to select such a story, with some of the presidential the nominees, they're expected in Parliament today. But we also see, over the past weeks or week, wherein Mohamed Bangura's, nomination has actually, covered all the others, together with Dr. Christina Thorpe and all that. What are some of the key issues, the key questions, that we as journalists, or broadcasters should definitely put forward, to people for the public to be enlightened?
Okay, in the first place, there is a counterproductive in our democracy. Especially with regards to the representation, our representatives in Parliament. They have the constitutions that in 71K of the Constitution, which says you cannot deviate from the support of your party, right? Wherein we have the people down there who sent them to Parliament. There's a counterproductive in that, right? Sometimes, not that the parliamentarians are not patriotic or they are not nationalistic, but they follow their party doctrine. Whatever their party asks them to do is what they are going to follow. Let us now say Mr. Mohamed Bangura has been nominated by President Nkrumah, who is the chairman and leader of the All People's Congress in power, right? Do you think the All People's Congress members of Parliament will go against that nomination? That is the question we are going to ask. That's why I'm saying that there is a counterproductive in our democracy. If you look at
would you agree with
no, I don't. I totally disagree. I mean, the Constitution is so much powerful. It supersedes the programs or activities of that of any political party in the country. That's why it is through which our state is being governed. So whatever has been spared, for example, as I hear from commentators that because of A, B, C, and Z, Mr. Mohamed Bangura, for example, should not be nominated as a cabinet minister.
So let's look at some of the questions, that journalists should raise, some of the issues, that definitely will come up, with such nomination like Mohamed.
Number one, you start to ask yourself, in the case where a constitution, a major part of the constitution is being breached.
So what's the case? What's the initial case?
I think the bottom line there is whether it contested the 2012 election or not. And on the record and off the record, if you go to the website of National Electoral Commission, there is the name Bangura Mohamed, and candidacy he had 0.2%. The question, the crux of the matter there is whether he officially on record declined, because there is a provision.
If he actually, officially, if he did write, to...
I have asked that question to Albert Masakoy, and I will tell you, he dodged the question. Because according to him, it's a bit complex and political in nature. But the fact there is... No, he never did. And I'll bet he will never answer that question outrightly.
Somebody was questioning the majority of the All People's Congress in Parliament, one party in majority. That is part of democracy.
So this is someone now, but I'm sorry to deviate a little bit, from the angle that you're taking in. But I think Melvin raised, an important question, because these are some of the questions, that we should be asking in general with Mohamed Bangura's, with regards, did he contest? Did he write officially to say, I'm not definitely going to contest this election? And should we also know, if there's a difference between public or general elections and all that, in which category, does the election, the presidential election, which category does it fall under? All these issues.
That is why I'm still saying that
before going forward.
Pyla was referring to the majority of one party in Parliament. We are looking at the majority of one party.
And this question is not relevant, when it comes to such.
We are looking at the power of
in asking these questions, we'll be able to enlighten
you know, the public with because journalists are
the role. I mean, our role as journalists is not only about asking
now, did
questions.
you actually?
Sometimes you even your question the questions there you are referring to will not help the situation. Here, I really want to challenge you.
Now,
I don't think so. I have sat in this studio, challenged a number of issues. At the end of the day, we'll go out and see changes. Though you might say it's not sometimes spontaneous, but what we are saying is not going down.
But don't you ask questions to get answers? To clarify issues.
One of the best ways for us as a journalist is to have that opportunity to be granted an interview, because in an interview, that's where you ask the tough and the light and the best and the worst.
Now, just to interrupt you too, guys. Now, with the answer, you know, with if anyone, you know, like Melvin, he attempted, you know, to talk to somebody from NEC, you know, with that together with, let's say, for example, the Attorney General with regards to the Constitution, what does it say? If somebody has definitely, you know, conducted an election, does it say that you should definitely serve, you know, as, you know, a deputy minister or a minister, you know?
Maybe to answer your question, I have made several attempts to even
and the issue here is I think Bangura was nominated as president of Sierra Leone.
Because these are the fundamental questions.
Who is affair with the constitution of Sierra Leone, right? And Mohamed Bangura is going to meet the president's party in parliament as majority, right? And there is also the constitution. So the argument here,
I am not preempting. Of course, most of these questions have already been asked by Cameroon, and you'll be very surprised today. And you'll be very surprised today to see Mohamed Bangura, for example, being approved as one of those cabinet ministers.
I think we should understand the process. We should understand the processes, the pros and the cons. It's not a one-off thing to interview them. I think they can come and make their own personal submissions, and the onus also is upon Parliament to go and investigate. So I think
based on evidence, you know,
empirical evidences, then so it's not a matter of just talking. It's a matter of having impact on the discussion. But it's not up to us. It's for these relevant institutions to ask the question and answer them, like you rightly said, not to just say, "Oh, we are talking." We should not skew the debate to what the public is saying. Sometimes we must inform and shape the public discourse. Let the people at NEC come and tell us, "Oh, it never contested." Let it, like you rightly said, let the Attorney General say, "Oh, there was no breach on the Constitution." We are not the ones that are going to say that. We are going to analyze. We are going to give our opinion sometimes, but it should be based on facts.
So would you
I still disagree, because sometimes these things are done deliberately to give us headaches in the public domain. Because at the end of the day, those people in question know better than myself or than not seated here. But at the end of the day, they do these things with impunity, and
that is why I started.
By the time you debate over this thing, the whole process is
very powerful in Africa.
This we are just here to
the executive arm of government is very powerful in Africa.
I don't think so. I totally don't think so, because the public cannot be fooled. They are not fools. Mind you, at the end of the day, it's the public that are going to decide the fate of every member of Parliament, every president.
In theory.
It's not in theory. In practice,
man, in theory.
Have we not seen in Sierra Leone the SLPP winning elections? Have we not seen in Sierra Leone APC winning elections? So it's a matter of time and informing the public.
Definitely, you know, as a journalist, you know, with regards, you know, such major reshuffle in the with this new cabinet. Have you ever, you know, brought out any information or been able to go to Parliament and say, "I have this about, you know, certain, you know, nominee"? Before
as a journalist, I work with tools, and one of those tools is to actually have appropriate sources. And immediately when this issue came up,
I went will come forward.
Well, it's what I'm saying. I made an attempt to speak to the Attorney General to actually see some provision in these things, but of course, there was no chance to even.
What about the Bar Association? You can also seek, you know,
I think we should not limit ourselves. One thing we've not asked as journalists: why has President Nkrumah not granted us a press conference in which maybe we'll ask him the question, why selecting this and this and this? We're not questioning him, but sometimes we're all human beings. Let's ask the questions to the people that make the decision.
So many questions unanswered.
Thank God you started it.
Definitely. Well, I think we'll lay that issue to us because of time, and I'll let Willie select his own story for this morning.
Is over 221 million euros chop to ACC net, and here it is making reference to President Nkrumah's statement as he was actually, determined in his words to fight corruption with in his words, said the era of doing things with impunity in the civil service is over, and it's making during the administrative inquiry report where, I mean, some, I mean, 2 young men were actually, accused, so to put, according to the publication here, of misappropriation of funds over the government payroll, suggesting that there are names on payroll that should not be there. And this is the president's position that the era is over. But my question to this is, how is the era over if we talk of corruption here?
Do we say this as a news, as something new? Because this is something that we keep hearing, in different institutions, talking about, how, payroll, some members are not supposed, people who've definitely retired and people who've definitely left, different institutions, yet still they're on payroll.
Yes, it is not new. So then that's the point I want to make here. I really, sometimes we often say, or President Nkrumah, ever since I could remember in the launch of his manifesto in 2007, he promised that indeed corruption was going to be one of his major focus.
And you haven't seen any improvement?
Well, relatively, there is some form of improvement. But the problem I have...
Relatively, can you elaborate a little bit more?
Well, I've seen instances where, for example, the former mayor was held responsible for some financial mismanagement, some of his cabinet ministers, but I've never seen, I mean, I still see corruption around. If I am to actually...
Does it surprise you? It doesn't go away, suddenly.
It doesn't go away, but I think we must live by example. We must live by example. And this is the much reason why I am saying that, as my colleague was saying, we need the critical questions we sometimes need to ask without fear or favor. For example...
So, according to you, relatively there has been, some improvement with regards to fighting...
Yeah, but the man in question here, often making this promise, in my view, is not working much towards that. For example, I often say conflict of interest. Whenever I see President Nkrumah make a statement with regards corruption, I often ask myself, where is the National Insurance Company? I mean, if we talk of people, institutions doing business with insurance companies,
so why
in my view, you see...
So why pick on the NIC?
I want, because it is the public, I mean, the National Insurance Company. And you still see RITCORP, for example, RITCORP growing more stronger than ever before.
So you think that...
a conflict of interest, yes, definitely. So if President Nkrumah is...
I think we should learn from South Africa. In the case wherein President Zuma expends a lot of money in rehabilitating his mansion. He was questioned by the parliament. He was probed based on evidences. And should be, I mean, the fight against corruption is not only President Nkrumah's business. Yes, he should take the lead. And has he been found wanting of corruption? Do we have any leakages on him being corrupt? So I think corruption is a societal problem in which, yes, good leadership counts in fighting it, but every man has a role to play in fighting corruption. I will say we are making progress in the fight against corruption, but there are many other sectors that we need to make much more progress in the fight against corruption.
Sectors like?
Well, there are many. The most recent one of that of the Ministry of Fisheries and Marine Resources, in which a recent report was published, and the president, if we are to relate him to this, he made a pronouncement that the recommendations of such are going to be implemented. And I think implementing some of these recommendations is one thing in fighting corruption, but also the judiciary...
You're saying there should be, sort of a political will, that in the fight against corruption.
For the particular fact that the judiciary, one way or the other, the president has some influence on the judiciary when it comes to the appointments of judges. So I think the political will in allowing the judges, the courts to operate with free hand and independence, that's where politics and the judiciary has got some relationship and nexus.
So would you agree with Willie, saying that, there has been, some improvement relatively in the fight against corruption? Well,
improvement based on how much, the quantification, I would say the progress, it's a thing in progress, basically, and progress can stop, we can reach progress, so it's an ongoing thing.
All right, Augustine?
In the first place, I don't think if there's any improvement in the fight against corruption. Corruption is becoming a culture and tradition. In Sierra Leone.
Why do you say that? Is it because you don't see people?
Even sometimes when governments make a public pronouncement that this is not supposed to happen, it happens at many levels. You go to the hospital.
It keeps happening.
You go to the hospital and check where there is supposed to be free healthcare delivery service, right? They are collecting money from parents every other day, almost every day. They are collecting money. When you go, they will tell you we don't have these drugs, but if you need it, give us money.
But are we also aware? No, but Augustine, are we also
there
aware
is corruption
that
everywhere? Go to the education. You go to the schools or the educational institutions. You can find out that even when government stop people from taking classes, extra classes in schools, they are still doing it. You know what I'm talking about?
So
you are part of this society.
No stronger. No, with regards to the free healthcare.
Let me tell you.
Really,
if you come to politics,
no, Augustine, just a minute. You're a health reporter. We know that there are certain illnesses that the free healthcare doesn't actually cover. Are some of these issues also related to it as well? Which Augustine is also talking about with regards to corruption, because sometimes people do get it all confused.
Of course, indeed, there is corruption everywhere, as he is rightly saying. Indeed, when you go to those hospitals, it is evident there. But then it starts. I often cite you building there as as the source of that the lead corrupt institution, because if the Ministry
That's
of
a grave allegation. Why would you say that?
There is no way, Howard. There is no way the hospital could be corrupted.
No, let's
could
look
be,
at
or there could be a corruption,
you're saying that.
or there is no way there could be a corruption in the hospital, and you have the chief medical officer that is not. I mean, the issue itself is not secret. It's an open secret. Everybody knows. The anti-corruption boss knows. But at the end of the day, I mean, people report sometimes. They say, "Oh, report those cases." People report.
Let's look at some of the reasons.
If, for example, there are supports, you ask me.
Yes.
Let's say the ministry, as I mentioned, the chief medical officer, right, or the hospital management boss, he sits at your building and asks how much effort does it make to even monitor the hospital. You have the Health for All Coalition who do monitor these things and do report. What action have they ever taken? Sometimes even the very supplies meant for these hospitals, the people they in charge of those hospitals could sign for them. But sometimes when you talk to them off record, they could tell you, we signed for those things, but we don't get them in full. Where are they left? The answer is we don't know.
Let me just.
So it's a secret. At the end of the day, you either conform or you are being transferred to a place you don't like.
Let me just buttress what he's saying. We only shout corruption at political level. But you go to the communities, you can see the evidence of corruption. We are talking about health here, right? Sometimes when you visit a government hospital, right, you pity the government. Because the kind of delivery that is taking place and the kind of effective service that we are expecting is not there. But when you visit a private hospital in this country, you see the reality of effective services. You visit a private school in this country, you see the effective of education. But when you visit a government school, sometimes you pity why is the government paying the people to render this service? So there is corruption everywhere.
So we don't blame the government?
No, you blame the government. The government preaches a system
of this country. We are all indulged in corruption. Corruption has become a tradition in this country. This is SLBC, right? Sometimes you may notice that the way how services are delivered here is manipulated. But when you visit, let's say the Star Television, where it is being owned by a private and it's a private-owned entity.
But does it mean
right?
that if an organization or an institution
even when you don't deliver service effectively, that's corruption.
Does that have to do anything with corruption? Would you say that?
What? When you fail to deliver effective services, which you are paid for, that's corruption.
Now,
I think the perception of corruption is making people more corrupt for the simple fact that it's the thinking now, it's the inkling of many Sierra Leoneans that you need to give something to get this.
Yeah.
Even when the processes even when the processes makes it's clear that you need to get it as easy as you can and using the right way. So I think the perception of corruption in the first place is what's making us corrupt.
Do you solely blame government?
No. I have asked one international expert when he came to Sierra Leone on one of the ACC program. I think it was coming from Transparency International. As I posed the question to him: the private and the corporate world, the corporate and the government world, which one is the most corrupt? And can you imagine, to your surprise, he said the corporate world, the private, or in this case the non-governmental world, is more corrupt than the government. Then I said, why? Then he could not explain much, for the simple fact that it's the private that in fact corrupts the government. It's the private individuals, the rich businessmen that corrupt, that breaks and breach these rules. So I think it's not a thing of blaming the government, like I started earlier on. It's a thing of setting the precedents right. Where government comes in, like I've said, let the court set the examples. Let's have precedents on cases that have gone to the court, that have been prosecuted, that people are facing time, people have faced the cause of law because of corruption. The more we begin to see that, the more people will get scared in not being openly corrupt. But because there is corruption everywhere, even if you go to the United Nations, there is corruption there. The thing about corruption, it should not be too visible, it should not be vivid, and it should not be like you're saying. Why should government not be too corrupt? Because when they are corrupt, the effectiveness of service delivery comes to question, and the people are the ones that suffer.
It is the government's responsibility to actually channel.
So who's the government?
The government, if I could attempt to answer that, is a group of people given the mantle to steer the administrative matters of a state, inclusive of the judiciary, the legislature, and the executive. And I am not part of that. Sometimes I pity people who do say we are all government. No, I'm not.
We elect government, so we are government.
I am not.
We elect government.
So because, for example, lawbreakers must be punished by the court.
No.
And in this instance, Willie Silvanus Collier hasn't the power to establish any court to try somebody that has done something wrong. And at the end of the day, you go to those government ministries.
And do you consider yourself as being corrupt-free?
Well, it's not for me. It's not for me to decide. It's for people to decide,
no,
not for me to decide.
You've never, you know.
Have you not?
Yes. I don't really think so. I want to categorically state that.
The situation in Sierra Leone is something that needs urgent attention. We have all conspired against this small state, and that is why the state is not great. Somebody was citing the private entity corrupting government institution. That is right. Here is a country where foreigners have taken the economy, right? When I'm talking about the economy, I mean a situation wherein all procurements, big procurements, where government can invest, are being undertaken by foreigners, right? And these foreigners are controlling the foreign exchange.
So who is responsible for
that? Allow me to come. So when these people gather the money, our own currencies, they have to decide to the bank managers and say, now I want to send this money to India. So the bank manager will say, no, we don't have enough foreign exchange. So who regulates
that sector? It is the government.
Okay, I will exchange. I will
we talk of individual
it's upon us to do the right things.
To discuss with you. Now, a small state like this, a small state that is supposed to have developed before this time, is still coming. We have foreigners that are conniving with our own statement to do whatever they want.
So why do
that is why every year we are still
from his submission. In fact, that is a weakness on the part of the government, because it is the government that has the authority to put everything under control. It is not you. And so if the government fails to do that,
so why do we think it's difficult? Why do we think
if we cannot control?
Simply because we are not making use of our laws. We have those measures.
We are traditionally corrupt.
They are in our law, but so we implement them. It is the government that should enforce or implement.
I totally agree with Willie on the fact that it's governmental institutions and non-governmental institutions that are to lead the fight against corruption. Yes. But us as individuals also need to change that mindset of that corruptive mindset, because at the end of the day, the government can do its best, but at the end of the day, if the man on the street, if that particular man in the office is not willing to change, other governments can come and people still are corrupt. So it's not a matter of government, it's a matter of us changing our mindset.
We've seen instances where people have
we have seen in this country where government ministers have been prosecuted. That is on the part
of in fact, they have been
promoted social pressure being used against people.
And start to put a stop. You visit some schools in this country and see.
For instance, the president removed the lands minister, but do we want to say is there still no corruption at Ministry of Lands?
For now, and I'll let Melvin select his own.
It's something on its own pets, and there is another newspaper that has to do with the Constitutional Review Committee, their abridged report, and the reaction to that. I happen to have interviewed one of Councillor Ali Conte, in one of these wards at Eastern, in which he was saying that the submission that council elections should not be partisan was incorrect, for the simple fact that people must have the right to belong to political parties and form association. And if the CRC is saying that people wanting to go to council should not be partisan, he was saying it was like a breach on their own human rights. And that, I think, is arguable to some extent, but it's also good that people do respond or react to the submission so far on the CRC draft report, for the simple fact that we want to see a healthy constitution. We want to see a constitution in which the rights, the privileges and opportunities are guaranteed to every Sierra Leonean and all of us that are under the constitution. So I think giving attention to the CRC is important, and for them as CRC, I think they must take into cognizance some of the submissions and stronger arguments or weaker arguments as to what to put or what to remove in the new constitution.
It's definitely debatable.
Yeah, of course. In the first place, the councils are supposed to take governance to the people down there. And if these councils are political, they will not meet certain community members because they belong to other political parties. So we should try to change the responsibility of the council. We should not politicize the council, because if we politicize the council, they will not be effective in delivering their services. But I am coming, allow me. In the first place, the councils are to be given more responsibilities and mandates, right? The councillors, for instance, if I am in governance, if I am a member of, I am a political authority in this country, I will give so many responsibilities to the councillors. One, they will be board members of any entities that operate in their wards. If a councillor is a board member of a particular company that exists in his ward, he will be able to deliver or to tell them what kind of corporate social responsibility that community is in need of. If a councillor is a board member of a school in his ward, he'll be able to know whether a particular teacher is delivering his service. He's not only collecting salary. He will be he will be a channel between the parents and the teachers. Whether these people, the teachers who are receiving salaries on behalf of government, are teaching in that school, the councillor will be able to identify ghost teachers.
It's not associated with any political party.
Yes, but if a councillor is a member of a political party, wherein a certain teacher is a member of that political party, if that teacher is not doing well, that councillor will not be able to report that teacher.
Is that what's happening, really? Do you think that's what's happening?
Councillors are not.
Yes, of course. People are being protected on political limit or political connections. Yes. So I want to really go by the suggestions of the CRC. Maybe if these people are actually given the chance to become councillors under the ticket of no political party, that will actually help to foster development in the different communities, because there are some people, because of our political culture or our myopic ideas we have over development, no sooner you pronounce or associate yourself with a particular political party than some people tend to, remove themselves from whatever developmental projects. But if you go there, without a political party, several people
can we also examine, the pros and cons, with having councillors, not running under any political party?
I think there have been more of the pros, but on the other hand, what if one argues that it's my fundamental human right to vote and be voted for and to belong to any association? could this particular submission not be breached in that particular section, in fact, in our constitution, that people must have the right to belong to associations of their choices. So I think it should be a beauty of democracy. There should not be a cap clause there that you should be a politician, it should be a party politician or not. It should be something like open thing. Yeah. Like for Senegal, I think they have made some amendments now in their constitution in which the president can be, how is it called? Is it a private? No, not private, independent candidate. So I think independent candidates should be allowed in some of these elections, rather than saying that they should not belong to political parties, because political parties are the fundamentals of the political governance system.
For the sake of democracy, this should definitely be
I think Melvin is missing the point. I mean, by that suggestion, I don't think it has anything to do with depriving somebody or bridging his fundamental human rights in any way.
It is.
Let's say, for example, we are all journalists in this place. We, one way or the other, belong to political parties or groups. But I mean, you don't sense that around us here. I mean, if you are to really judge us constructively. So the same thing goes to that. You may be part of a political party, but when it comes to the area of showing yourself there, your values, there could be nothing like politics. We go to the mosque, we go to the churches, we belong to political parties or different groups. But when we are there as one group. We are not there as political party. That's what exactly the CRC is suggesting. Not necessarily you cannot become. And that's one. Secondly,
I think you should understand the submission is that it should not be partisan, meaning that there's no option there. I can't say there should be an option.
Secondly, for example, if you are there as member of the political party, here we are looking at the advantages outweighing the disadvantages. I often quote Machiavelli that if a small portion of evil could be used to achieve a greater good, so be it. Then justifies the means.
I'm glad you say it's a small portion of evil.
Oh yes,
I'm glad you said so.
Is a concern.
Yes, because they just think without political party they cannot exist. Some of them. But if you are developmental, you are nationalistic. I think this is the rare time for councils to remain independent.
Indeed.
Independent without an agenda.
I'm coming.
Political parties do have agenda.
When you look
at they have focus issues.
If you go back to the formation of councils, you reach certain concept or certain analysis of the local council. They will tell you that people who have got experience, like retired people who have got experience in administration and other sector, have now decided to go back to their community, are those people that should take the responsibility of manning the council, right? Let us say if you have served as a journalist for several years during your retirement and you want to become a councillor, you have your experience, then you can bring development to the people. But I quote, if you take the man for let represent you, he does things without the existence of political party, he cannot pick it up.
And some people with the backing, they definitely...
Yeah, Madam Bagui, we saw an election in which some councillors, some political parties had to pay for election fees for their councillors and some of their candidates. So we must take on the other hand, some of these individuals are coming from maybe inexperienced political background, not well-financed background. So that's where the role of political...
That doesn't necessarily mean that they shouldn't take part in...
Definitely.
So what if they allow political parties to control the councils, they will manipulate the rights of the people.
How?
Many ways. Sometimes they will have to take decision that is not in favor of the people.
Oh.
Like what is happening now. I am coming. Now we are now looking at parliament, right? Whether they are going to approve a certain person or not, right? But the MPs there we also believe in 71K that says you should follow the trend of your political party, right? But looking at the right of the majority right of the people in their constituency, and so be it in the world.
Have we not seen in this recent parliament in which the safe abortion was turned down by people in APC and SLPP at one go?
That was another crucial case.
It should be a case in which the party must see national interest first, not your party interest. I think I can agree to some extent with that sort of submission. But they should not be bad. It was a private members motion coming from a partisan woman.
I think
coming from Honorable Isaac Kabir, then of the APC.
was a private member.
So it has some party.
It's also some religious aspect.
I think what is important here is to actually see how best we could have people to come forward to give their level best for community development.
Exactly so.
Look at tomorrow, Sierra Leone will be observing. Sierra Leone will be joining the rest of the world tomorrow to observe the World Water Day. Unfortunately, all what we will be observing tomorrow is scarcity of water in several communities, and so we must have people to see this instead of always us joining the rest of the world to celebrate pain. We should have now people in these councils to be celebrating something good.
There are some areas, who definitely.
If you get to the cold water community now, that feeds over 50,000 of community people from Douazak, from Leicester Peak, queue for water that is unsafe water.
That's a whole story.
Yes.
Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining me on the program. But what do we expect to see, in the papers tomorrow, Melvin?
The parliamentary probing on the presidential nominees.
All right, Willie?
I hope to say tomorrow that government of this country, together with the international community, have begun the post-Ebola in Sierra Leone.
All right, Augustine?
Developmental issues.
And breaking news, of course, if we do have any of them. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining me on the program. That was Augustine Samba, a media analyst. Before him, Willie Collier, who is head of programs Cottontail News, and Melvin Manzeri, acting editor of the Good Morning Trumpet newspaper. My name is Hawa Bari. Do join me tomorrow for another edition of the program. Pressreview. Till then, do have a lovely day and keep watching. As always. Good night.